And this led to your next play.
Half century. By the way, I don't know how many people remember Project Icon. A paper that lasted a few months. I don't even go into that. Half Century was written, my second play after Less Indifference. Again, it started around 92, 93. I was part of a theatre works workshop group, the Robin was there, Dana and all that. And I started on this script there. For those of you old enough to remember the last century, you remember that in 1990s, especially from 1995 onwards, we always see a new century is around the corner, a new millennium is around the corner. And that kind of make us think about, there's a new beginning, we're saying goodbye to the old things. And it struck me that, time to take stock. And my generation, all born in the 1950s, come the end of that last century, we'll all be half centuries, so I'm getting 50 years old. So that was the emotional touchstone of that play, was people in that generation. Come the turn of the century, when they look back at their life in Singapore, what would they be thinking of Singapore as a place? I decided to look at it from a political perspective. In our theatre works workshop group, there were people who were part of the so-called Marxist conspiracy and were detained. And from there, I talked to them. Well, even before that, in '87, when I was working in the newspaper, I was pretty upset by the Marxist conspiracy thing, because to me it just was nonsense. And so when I decided to write Half Century, political detention, particularly Marxist conspiracy event, 1987, was very much public. So the structure of the play is really a play within a play within a play. It's about a playwright who was writing a play that was politically very sensitive about political detention. And then the IST came into the picture and said, we don't like your play, come and be interviewed by us. And the guy went up, playwright went up to be interviewed. And then he was just kept in detention for a period of time.
You've got a clip for us, and tell us about that.
Okay. Theatre was known as a clip of a reading of the play, not a full-fledged production. So, in this, the first scene you're going to see, which is three characters of a play, living in London. They're all exiles. One had to run away to avoid being arrested. It's now a famous violinist, and Singapore government wants him back, because now you're a famous violinist, we want you back. He wants a world-class violinist. Okay. Very difficult to get. And another one is an old woman who used to be a Berlin Communist Party operative, gone to the jungle, came back and allowed to come back to Singapore, but now living in London with the son. And here they are in London talking about being exiles. And of course, the issue of exiles has not gone away like that. It's very much in the news today. Should we allow our exiles to come back?
Let's watch that.
Let's hope that
Now you know where he gets. So, all this about, exiles,
spying on citizens, these issues are still around.
yes.
This 1992. When I wrote Half Century, the play was set on the eve, the last day of 1999. So I was kind of writing about the future, that's about it.
which has come to pass.
But now we are, 15 years past that, and a lot of those old issues are still talking.
And you're going to show us a second clip.
This second clip takes you see, I'd say this is a play within a play within a play. So here, all the actors have come out of their of their characters and say, now we are duality. And then people, the cast members were kind of very nervous about wanting to be part of this play because they say, hey, it's going too far, we're going to get into trouble. And this part had one of the actors wanting out and say, I can't do this. Because I'm a policeman, my OC tell me not to be involved in this. And while all this is happening, that phone call came through. My IC telling the director, come and meet us.
Have you ever encountered such?
Not from my place, but half century. Theatre Works wanted to stage it 1998, 1999. Ready to go, but had phone calls from senior civil servants who say, we don't think you should rock the boat. That kind of very moving. So then Theatre Works decided not to stage. So again, I had to wait years for half century finally to have a kind of semi-production. South Century never really had a full production. It was kind of, for a few days, maybe it was in 2002 or something like that. It was a very, very pared-down production. By that time, I think for a play that I was writing to say, let's look at how the last 50 years has been, right? Because of the excitement of the event. When it comes to it somehow has lost some momentum. So half century became buried. So it's not a play that many people know of because it never had a proper production.
And following half century, you then went away.
Yes. Came about the year 2002. I was getting a bit strained by my journalism career. It was a bit too fast paced for me. And I decided that I would gate crash academia. So I went to the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies and say, will you take, I don't have a PhD, but I have all this newspaper experience, and I would like to research Singapore. And the director then says, well, we don't have the funding for a Singapore position, but we have lots of funding for Vietnam. Vietnam then was opening up, and lots of people were giving money to research Vietnam. If you want, you can have it, take it or leave it. So I took it. So I joined academia, became a member of the institute, and then Charlie Chi, who became the director, told me, Russell, you want to be an academic, right? We employ you, you don't need a PhD, but it's like a union calling card. You don't be taken seriously when they're a union card. So go and do your PhD. So there you are. I went off to Australia in those years to do my PhD. Again, courtesy of the Singapore government. And I called like
Who says we're not supportive in Singapore?
So in those years, since I was my thesis was on mass media in Vietnam, was combining my experience working in a Singapore newspaper and being familiar with how media has to operate within an authoritarian political system like Singapore, and it's like, let me go and look at Vietnam. Okay. So those years were spent living in Australia, living in Vietnam, doing my research there. And those years also became the years that inspired Comrade Mayor, which is set in a third world country, somewhat like Vietnam, opening up.
Your third play?
My third.
And you've got a clip for us.
So that's yes.
Tell us about Comrade Mayor.
Comrade Mayor, just told you, since it's kind of derived from my Vietnamese years, the story is about a group of Singaporeans living in a foreign country, socialists, opening up. And when they went there, they kind of ran into the politics of that country, and they saw similarities. Here was a country that was communist opening up and looking to Singapore as something they want to emulate. They want to be a successful capitalist country like us. But gee, they also want to emulate our politics. And these Singaporeans, it's a spectrum. There were people who saw in it something insights. But there are also Singaporeans who are incapable of seeing ironies. people are not very reflective, and to them they would say, "Oh, what is this got to do with me?" So in a way, while I tell a story set in Vietnam, I was hoping that Singapore audience watching it would be stimulated to think about, hey, some of these issues raised are some of the questions you're asking about Singapore society. Now, if in that play the Vietnamese are looking at it in that way, would we be looking at it in a similar way or not? And this would span the whole issue, the whole range of issues about Asian values, how newspaper work, independence of the judiciary, do governments influence the courts if they don't want the judges to run cases in a certain way. So that was the whole launch that we Comrade Mayor. When the clip you will see, you'll find Comrade Mayor has got 8 male characters, 8 male actors. That wasn't my idea. I wrote it as a play that needs 8 actors, can be men, can be women, playing a whole cast of characters, a whole lot of characters. But the director then wanted an all-male cast, injected a homoerotic element into it.
Why do we watch this?
So watch it.
Even if it had been played by a woman, it would have been considered very daring.
Would it? มัน unit is 2002我写得很不懂。Comrade Mayor has got a tagline called an Asian Family Tale, so it's actually a comedy, very fast moving, very fast paced dialogue. And I kind of feel that my feeling about this production as well, that it's visually very interesting and it worked up to a certain point. It really wasn't my vision of how it should be on stage. I had envisaged a play that would give you a sense of going to a country that is returnable. I had expected more stagecraft where the actors would be pulling things out of bags, put on makeup, and then they just morph into different characters. But the director wanted this other vision of uber chic. All the male actors were in Giorgio Armani suits.
The director was?
That's it. I think one of those of you who are in theatre here will know that you write a script, but ultimately and put out on stage can be very different from what you intended to be, and that is life essentially, as opposed to theatre.
So are you very hands-off as a writer?
I try to. I would give my input here and there, but ultimately you must realize that there's a job for the night. It's not myself that take over as director.
And we've got a second clip.
This second clip, okay. I suppose the centerpiece of Comrade Mayor is an interesting incident where the Straits Singapore correspondent, you think it's the Straits in that city, wrote an article saying that this mayor influenced the courts to rule things in his favor. And of course, he was going to be dragged to the court there to face a charge of scandalizing the judiciary. Here in this scene, we will see an Australian correspondent explaining to this Singapore correspondent, telling him, you got it wrong. The mayor doesn't pick up the phone to tell judges how to rule. Judges know how to rule because it's a system called self-censorship. It's in all societies.
That's what?
Your sister was. I suppose.
Did you face such issues, self-censorship, in the Straits Times when you were working as a journalist?
Certainly. I think many journalists in Singapore tell you they do have to deal with this kind of system. And of course, in journalism, it goes beyond that. Sometimes it's just censorship. I think you all read the biography or the memoirs of Chang Seng, the chief editor. He talked a lot about the occasions when he actually made instructions. Yeah, you triggered my memory. One of the reasons why I left the Straits Times, one of the reasons why I left the Straits Times was that during those years in the Straits Times, I started out in the political desk. It happened to run into the Marxist conspiracy nonsense, and I was kind of upset about it. And then I was then one of the editorial writers, and one day we were called into the room by the chief editor to say, okay, we have to editorialize on this today. Who wants to volunteer for it? 6 of us in the room, and we all look at each other. Nobody wanted to volunteer because we all just thought it was nonsense. But of course, in that Straits Times editorial, you just come up, you can't say it's nonsense, it's not us. So and then finally somebody volunteered to do it. So, but it kind of made me realize that while journalism in Singapore is okay, quite often, you just report the news, you will run into occasions like this when you would have to do something that you really is very unhappy to do. And that was one of the reasons why I left. Tan, can you remember, were you there that morning? You haven't joined the Tan was also there, also as an editorial writer, but you haven't joined.
As a political writer, you must admit just about everyone in your work.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, as a good writer, you meet important people. When I go Chokdong travel to Japan, I was one of the persons sent to cover him. And then, given the times as we have lived through in the past 1 month, I suppose I have talked about my meeting with the late Lee Kuan Yew as a journalist. Since everyone is talking about that personal meeting with him, what it meant to him. I also had an occasion when I was sent to have lunch with Mr. Lee, who was then senior minister, me and another journalist, because Lee had said he wanted to meet the new generation of journalists. So I wasn't keen to go, but since I was penciled, I had to go. So I went and at the Istana, and he was there, and his personal secretary Jesu. And we sat down, and of course, Lee asked the usual questions about our lives and so on. So I told him I left the civil service to join journalism. And I said, why did you leave? So I told him what I just told you, that I didn't get my security clearance because I'm gay. Kind of coming out to the next senior minister. Well, you'll guess what was his reaction. He was very matter of fact about it. He just kind of said, well, did your supervisor, your superior people, you didn't know you were gay? I say I didn't stand on the table and announce it. I didn't hide it, and I think some of them know, but not all of them know. And he kind of said, well, you didn't know it shouldn't be a problem because then you wouldn't go to black. And then that was that. The subject was closed, and we went on to talk about other things. Since this past 1 month or so on the social media, I think you'll get a lot of people talking about Lee Kuan Yew's role in whether he supported the gay community or not, whether he wanted to repeal 377A or not. I think the man as he was is a very practical-minded person. He keeps up with issues, and I think from that in those early years, in the late 80s, he probably personally had an issue with gay people. But would he go out of the way to rewrite the laws for gay people? Probably not. I think he didn't think the issue was important. That was my takeaway from that lunch, because this whole subject changed to other things, and I get the sense that for the rest of the lunch, he was more interested to hear the views of my colleague, Cheng Chun Tat, because those were the years also about Asian values, communism. Cheng Chun Tat, who is kind of bilingual because he went to SEP school, is very much into that kind of Chinese culture. So I kind of just enjoyed lunch and spoke about 20% of the time. And that's but you do run into interesting experiences like that as a journalist.
And from political desk, you went on to become features editor.
Yeah, for the Sunday Times. I like that because I found that in the political desk, you keep running into all these things that you don't really enjoy. And so I became features editor, which is under me, you have pages for food, for theatre, for arts, for fashion, for interior decor. So
one of the things you pushed for was comics.
Yes, you all know the Sunday Times has a few pages of comics. And the 80s went to 90s was Singapore society were getting more expressive. We had Playwrights coming right place. Comic people were also wanting to draw Singapore comics. And Eric Koo was one of them. And so I decided to dedicate the whole page to Singaporean comics, people who draw them. Eric's comics were rather offbeat, very dark, and of course that's an appeal to a lot of people. So I got a lot of flack from my rather more conventional colleagues who had conventional taste for comics, should be about Superman or Tarzan or Peanuts. So I frequently had to defend Eric's comics and say, give it a try, and so on. So Eric drew a whole lot of comics from me. Then, but when I decided to leave the Sunday Times and change career, I called Eric in and said, Eric, time for you to go too, because I won't be around to fight for the space for you. So Eric comic disappeared, and he went on to make films.
So one good thing came out of that.
Oh, he probably have made films anyway.
And earlier one of the things that we were playing is and we spoke about it a little earlier, which is Teochew opera, right? So there's one piece in particular that you are very fond of. Tell us about this.
Well, it's not really one piece in particular. I mean, I like Teochew opera, not all of it. I mean, there's bad Teochew opera and good Teochew opera. But I think many people have this idea that Chinese opera is all about romantic love stories and folk tales and all that. It is. But Chinese opera also sometimes its content is highly political. That goes into intellectual debate. And one of the pieces I like is this thing called Guan Han Qing. Guan Han Qing, I think the background is written there. It's a very famous Chinese playwright during Dynasty. And this particular opera that I like, which has a snippet, is about how he wrote this famous play, which is still available today, Justice of Dua, or Midsummer Snow, it's called. And how he had to suffer for it, because after writing, it was a critique of the corrupt establishment of his times. And after writing that play and staging it, he was banished to some distant province. And one of the female leads had her eyes gouged out for being part of the play. By the way, I have to stress that none of this is verified by history. So I think the person who wrote that script, they have taken some dramatic license, but I like that opera for what it is saying, and I like the music and this particular clip, which I find very tuned.
Shall we have to listen?
It's an acquired taste, so some of you may think it's cacophony.
Put up your hands, how many of you can translate that?
This is a friend trying to persuade him, don't write this opera, you'll get into trouble. You have a great career as one of the foremost dramatists of China. You earn lots of money, you are headed for glory. For God's sake, don't write to a yuan. And this comes as snippet. The reason why it resonates with me also is that frequently in my life, be it in newspaper or in academia, there were people who approached me, always a good intention. No, Rossa, I don't think you should do it. It's for your own good. Singapore social political scene has got lots of people like that. Sometimes maybe they are really cautioning you and say, it's for your own good. But sometimes it is. Let me tell an anecdote. I will name names now. I was then features editor of the Sunday Times and I commissioned a feature that was somewhat frivolous but with a purpose. I took the birthdays of the important leaders of Margaret Thatcher and so on, and I say, okay, with this birthday, we know the horoscope for that 1 week. When something major happened to her, Margaret Thatcher was ousted from Conservative Party. Let's see what the horoscope say for them. Was it accurate? And then I interesting read. And then a good friend of mine in the should send the email to me. You know, Russell, do you know that Lee Kuan Yew doesn't like such superstition? Maybe you should. Well intentioned, it was warning me from a career. So, but then, this particular person is today a very senior person in India. I will name him or her.
But shall we say that Singapore theatre audiences and Singapore, right, as a whole is very lucky that we have a playwright like Russell who dares to bring up, things which might be slightly uncomfortable and to make us think a little bit beyond the things that we're fed. So, Russell, we
no, I must declare. While I'm inspired by people like Wan Ching and lots of other people, I often feel that, these are standards, that's out there. We aspire to them, but I often feel that I actually don't live up to them, so do not say these things on me.
We thank Russell. If you'd like to hear, excerpts from Less Demons Get to Me, the reading is on the 25th of April this month at the Esplanade. So come by and watch that if you can. Next week we continue with this series and we will be in conversation with Desmond Sim. So if you're free a Friday from now, please do come by and bring your friends along as well. Alright. So meanwhile, the evening continues downstairs. We've got some light bites and drinks for everyone. So please join us and let's continue the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.